Hello my friends, welcome back to the Indie Fantasy Club, your one-stop shop for discovering incredible self-published fantasy and also a few tips to help you improve your own writing, hopefully. Today, along with being your resident book peasant, I shall also be an amateur writing coach. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. This video, I just want to try and help authors out there to improve their writing skills, and hopefully these little workshops will help with that. In this video, we're going to discuss one of the most critical skills for fantasy writers, which is to show, don't tell. This is going to be the first episode in my writing workshop series, where we will explore storytelling techniques to help you craft worlds and characters that will really stick with your readers. So grab a notebook, grab your favorite beverage, and let's get started. First, I want to break down what I mean when I say show, don't tell. I know there's a lot of videos out there explaining show, don't tell. You've probably seen them. Again, this will be a very workshop video, but I just need to get some basic definitions out there from my perspective so that we have something to work off of. Telling is basically when you give your readers information in a very direct, straightforward, and clear way. So it's very explanatory. For example, it was a cold night. Now, we as readers know the night was cold. It's very clearly stated, but it's not very engaging, right? Showing, on the other hand, uses sensory details, actions, and emotions to really paint the picture for the reader. So instead of it was a cold night, you might write something along the lines of frost clung to the window pane, and her breath fogged the air as she pulled the cloak tighter around her shoulders. See how much more immersive that feels? Now, keep in mind there's a time and a place for everything. There will be times in your story where you just need to cut to the chase and tell the reader what's going on. Otherwise, you might tend to spiral into purple prose, which for me is much worse and harder to get through than just regular boring prose. But as a general rule of thumb, you need to master this technique first and understand the rule before you break it. It should be about 75% showing and maybe 25% telling. And the more you show, the bigger your book's probably going to be, but also the more immersive the experience will be for the reader. So again, that may increase the word counts, but I'd take a big immersive book over a short historical narrative any day. Now, why is this especially important in fantasy writing?
Because fantasy is the only place where we can wrestle with complex moral dilemmas and intricate emotional turmoil beyond the constraints of reality. It's a place where we can escape to root for our heroes and rise up against tyranny and hatred because we deserve a chance to fight with great warriors, wield magic with talented mages, and love those perfectly sculpted fairy boyfriends.
As fantasy authors, we are building entire worlds oftentimes from scratch. Our readers won't know what our kingdoms, our magic systems, our characters really feel like until we show them. If we only tell them this story, we are robbing them of the chance to experience it for themselves. Showing is what creates those emotional connections that bring characters to life, and it helps readers visualize your world, and it makes your narrative more vivid and memorable. So now that we got that context out of the way, are you ready to buy my course? For a monthly subscription of only $9.99, you can get access to all these workshops. I'm kidding. I don't claim to be an expert, so I would never make you pay for this content. So let's talk about how to put show, don't tell into practice. And I'm going to give you 3 tools to help you master this technique. Number 1, we want to master the senses. Always leverage your senses in writing, especially smell, sound, and touch. Sight is the obvious one, because we need to know what's going on, but the other senses are what really immerse us into the story, because oftentimes it can connect to our lived experiences and memories that we have of those specific smells, tastes, feelings, and we want to just recreate that for them, connect them to those experiences. Let me give you an example, and then we'll work on a few together. The tavern was lively. Is that good storytelling? From that one sentence, what could you tell me about this tavern, other than it was lively? Go on. I'll wait. Exactly. Showing is all about giving the reader clues, so their imagination can fill in the gaps. So I'm going to show you this in action. We're going to take that same sentence and now we're going to show. Mugs clattered against each other, spilling the stale ale across the worn tables. Laughter echoed through the cramped space, dispelling any hope of eavesdropping. John blew into his hands and made his way to the sticky warmth of the roaring fire in the corner. Now what can you tell me about this tavern that wasn't part of that description? Here's a few things that I would pull from it. This tavern is a popular place. There's a lot of people there. It's crowded. Because it's crowded, it's loud. You get a sense that it's going to be harder to hear things. You might have to shout to get the bartender's attention. People seem to be having a good time. It doesn't seem like a scary bar where there's thugs and ruffians. It seems like just a upbeat place to go after work. It's cold outside because the character is wanting to pursue the warmth of the fire. And because the ale is stale, it's probably cheap and therefore probably doesn't taste that great. But that doesn't affect the mood. So that tells you something about this tavern without me having to tell you it. Do you see the difference? Okay. So now it's time for you to get some practice. I'm going to put a sentence on the screen that is telling, and I want you to pause the video and rewrite it into a showing sentence or paragraph. So do you have your Word or Google Docs open or pen and paper? All right then. The first 3 examples are going to focus on setting and descriptions. Let's start with this one. The castle was huge and intimidating. Now remember, pause this video and write your own version that shows us that the castle is huge and intimidating. All right, we're going to move on, but no cheating. Here's how I rewrote this to show. The jagged edges of the stone castle blocked out the sun entirely, casting long shadows well beyond the wide moat. John swallowed as he craned his neck to the sky. He took a quick breath to steady his growing dizziness before approaching the gate. What do you think? How did I do? How did you do? All right, that was kind of a warm-up. Now let's get into the second one. The forest was creepy at night. Simple. Let's spice it up a little bit. Add your own little flair to it. What would make the forest creepy to you? Show me. Okay, hopefully you're done with yours. Now I'm going to give mine. Empty tree branches clawed at the gentle breeze. Sarah inched closer to the fire and pulled her cloak around her knees that were already pulled tight to her chest. Twigs snapped beyond the reach of the firelight, and a mournful howl echoed through the trees. See? So a little bit eerie. You get a sense that this person is very uncomfortable, alone at night in this dark forest. And we get to experience that with them. They're cold. They're afraid. They don't know what those noises are in the woods. We just hear them snapping in the distance. It's just more immersive. Okay, are you ready to try for the third and final round of the settings and descriptions? The sentence is, her magic was powerful and dangerous. Okay, now I want you to show me, not tell me, how the magic is powerful and dangerous. You ready for my version? Here's what I came up with. Heat warped the air all around the dark witch, sizzling and cracking into an emerald glow. Cracks spidered across the stone floor as she stretched forth her long, bony fingers, her nails long ago blackened with rot. Right? So we might not know what the magic does, but we do get a sense of this is powerful. It's literally warping the air around this person, and they seem experienced because their fingers are rotted from it. They've done it for a long time. That's where my mind kind of goes with it. Your mind is going to go to a different place because every author has a different perspective. So there's not a right answer to this. It's just about practicing showing what your imagination is seeing and portraying that to a reader. So do you see how much of a difference that makes to the story? As a reader, we don't want to be told what the setting is. We want to be walking into the castle with John, or huddle next to the fire with Sarah, or we want to back away from that dark witch so that we don't get fried. When you tell us what's going on, you are robbing us of our imagination. And that's what brings fantasy books to life. And that'll be all for today's workshop.
Sit back down.
Did you think we were done? Get those practice documents back open. All right, the next category we're going to focus on is actions and reactions. For example, instead of telling us that a character is nervous, maybe their hands are trembling or they're avoiding eye contact. Readers are going to pick up on these cues and feel the tension as they experience this scene. All right, let's go through a few examples. Remember to pause and do it yourself before I give my versions of the rewritten examples, okay? Here's the first one. He was cold as he walked through the snowy mountains. How would you rewrite that? Here's how I would do it. His breath billowed before him in white clouds, only to coat his scruffy beard in more of that damned frost. Try as he might, he couldn't keep his teeth from clattering together, vibrating his skull in a relentless hum that drowned out the biting winds. He popped the collar of his thin military jacket to at least cover the back of his neck before cursing at the winding trail stretching up the mountain. How'd you do? Were you able to depict your version of this sentence and show what was happening? All right, let's move on to the example number 2. The villagers were scared of the dragon. Pretty simple. Now we know the villagers are scared. Now we know there's a dragon. Doesn't really leave much of a story painted in my mind. So paint me one. Here's what I came up with. Doors slammed and shutters were drawn tight as the sky darkened with that familiar shadow. Not even the children peeked from behind the curtains. Within 2 heartbeats, the once bustling street was empty. Merchants abandoned their carts. Innkeepers locked their doors. Even the stray cats knew to scurry into the dark alleyways. A roar erupted, vibrating the air as if lightning were about to strike. Not once did I mention that a dragon was flying. And some readers aren't going to know that it's a dragon. That's okay. We know there's something ominous and scary in the sky, and we can feel the fear and the tension of this village. That's what we want to feel and know as a reader. It's okay to have some questions by the time you're done showing a little bit of the story. We trust that we will learn as we go. All right, last one. The army was exhausted from the long march. Okay, pause the video. Show me why and how they are exhausted. You ready for my example? Here it is. Boots dragged through the mud. The soldiers slumped under the weight of their packs, and not a single voice rose from the steady beat of those trudging feet. No spirited banter, no melodies from the traveling minstrels, not even a quiet complaint. Only the steady breathing as they marched with as much haste as they could muster. How did you do? Are you starting to get a little bit of a feel for it? I feel like once you start showing and get that practice, it's a lot easier to get into a rhythm as a writer. And the more you practice, the easier it will come to you. And that's when you can start breaking some of the rules. Okay, so we've talked about settings and actions. Now I want to get into some of the dialogue interactions. As I've mentioned in a previous video, dialogue should only communicate about 7% of what you're trying to tell the reader. Tone and body language is what should be doing the rest. And obviously internal monologues, a few other things that we get away with as writers. You get the point. This often means that things are left unsaid, but we as the readers are able to understand what's going on. For example, imagine 2 characters meeting together after a long feud. Instead of telling us they're angry with each other, show it through curt responses, clenched fists, or even forced politeness. Ready to give this one a try? Let's dive into it. All right, here's the first example. Remember, pause this video and give it a shot before you see my version. Now, for the sake of this video, I don't want to actually write out the dialogue and the back and forth. I'm just basically giving you a scene of where dialogue could be happening and then giving you what their reaction could be to that dialogue. So you'll have to kind of imagine some things, but you should be integrating a lot of this within your dialogue. So with that said, the first one is, the queen was saddened by the news. I'll give you a moment. All right, now here's my version. The queen nodded to the messenger and gave him a wan smile that didn't touch her eyes. Only after the click of the door closing did she let out a shaky breath, gripping the back of the chair to keep her upright. She blinked furiously to keep the tears at bay. A queen did not mourn at the sacrifice of noble warriors. Again, that was my interpretation of how she would express her sadness. And again, maybe they're having a conversation while she's struggling with some of these things. But you get a sense that she's noble, she's a leader, and she waits until she's alone to actually feel and show these emotions that she's having. She doesn't tell them that she's sad. In fact, they might think that she's doesn't care at all. And that can create miscommunication. That can create conflict. That's a good thing. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The merchant was arrogant and rude. Okay, not bad. Now show me the difference. Here's what I came up with. The merchant's lip curled as his eyes slowly raked her tattered tunic. He held an embroidered kerchief to his nose and whispered something to the lady at his arm. They both snickered and sauntered off, without casting so much as a dried biscuit into the beggar's filthy, outstretched hands. See how much we're showing with that description? We're showing more than that he's arrogant and rude. We're showing that he's wealthy. There's a class system in this little paragraph. You can communicate a lot without telling us anything. All right, now let's dive into the final example. The witch was wicked and untrustworthy. How would you show me that? Pause the video, write it down. Here's how I would do it. The witch's smile curved too wide, revealing sharp teeth that glinted in the firelight, and her fingers never strayed far from a strange pouch tucked at her belt. Her gaze never strayed from his own eyes, boring into him like a worm chewing through rotted apple. How are we feeling? Maybe a little overwhelmed? Maybe a little discouraged? Hopefully, you're also feeling a little more confident in your ability to craft an immersive story. Now, I want to leave you with one more sentence, and I'm not going to give a reply to it. I want to see your rewritten sentences in the comments. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the best response. So are you ready? Here is the sentence that I want you to show me. The demon was horrifying. Now, I want you to show me all of the skills you've learned from this short workshop. Think about its appearance, the sound that it makes as it walks, or floats, or flies, how the characters react to it, how it smells. I'm really looking forward to seeing your upgrades in the comments. And I'm really excited to see how creative you indie authors can really be. And that'll do it for today's Show Don't Tell workshop. I hope you found this helpful and that you're feeling inspired to show off your storytelling skills. If there's anything else you'd like me to do as a workshop format, let me know and I'll see if it's within my limited wheelhouse of amateurish expertise. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next episode in this writing workshop series. And if you know any aspiring authors who might benefit from this series, share this video with them. Let's grow this amazing community of indie fantasy authors and indie fantasy readers. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep writing, and keep reading indie fantasy. We will see you in the next video.